So politics.
Politics. Yes, politics. First of all,
Where's the crickets?
Yeah. No, I'm about to take off. Where's the jet going?
Yeah, we have the rock music. That's all we have.
That's funny.
That's the intro. That's the intro.
No.
Yeah.
I do have something to start with.
All right, go.
Already. Okay. Did you guys hear about the?
Wait, are we recording?
We're just
practice.
We're just practicing.
This is like an.
I said we just.
I actually am recording.
Okay.
I was trying to get this naturally.
Gotcha.
Can I share this?
Oh yeah. It's that's just it. It's more.
Yeah, good.
So, did you hear about Russia launched their satellite? That's supposedly, this is what the government's saying, is that it's a satellite weapon to take out other satellites, and they launched it like 3 days ago, and the United Nations are really upset about it.
So wait, Russia's satellite is a
so
weapon
they just
to
launched
take out other satellites.
Yeah.
And is that what we're supposed to be doing with Space Force?
I was going to say,
yeah, exactly.
Is Space Force deployed right now?
Right.
That's the point of Space Force, is to protect from threats against our satellites. Exactly. So I don't know what they're doing about it right now, but I'm sure they're doing something.
So Space Force is late.
Yeah.
We should have had Space Force like 5 years ago, because we have no plan whatsoever to
start blasting.
Well, we need our anti-satellite weapon to take out other anti-satellite weapons.
Exactly. And this is Russia or China?
Russia.
Yeah.
Who is probably in cahoots with China, as we know. But I think it's kind of interesting timing, though, because China is developing and about to launch their independent GPS system, because we control all of the global positioning as far as mappings and stuff go in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Even Russia?
Yeah, we control all of that. It's our satellite. So China just announced and is soon to launch their own GPS, so they don't have to rely on our mapping anymore, which I think is really interesting, because if we're taking out if Russia and China are in cahoots and they want to take out a satellite, then if they take out our global positioning system, take down all of our maps and everything like that. Because, I mean, GPS isn't just for your cell phone. I mean, it's for the military complex. It's for everything.
Right.
So if they were to take out our GPS system, and that put us pretty blind on troop positioning and all that stuff. Because I know that they have this new, I don't know how new it is, but they have this app. I can't remember exactly what it's called, that the military uses. And it's on like pretty much every Android phone. They don't have it on iPhone anymore. And they just released the consumer version of it. But basically it's a map on your phone that shows all of your troops' positions on it, and then and this is like military standard now. And then it shows your battle plan and where you're moving, and your convoy, or not convoy, but your rendezvous points and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. It's like a heads-up display almost, but on your phone. So commanders can be like, all right, we're moving here, and this is where you have to go. Or we know that they're here and they're moving from point A to point B, and we know that they're like 3 clicks into it or whatever. And that's all run off GPS, and that's our main. How we tell where our soldiers are, where they're moving, and this is their operating mission. So even stuff like that would be heavily affected by GPS, or even flight patterns or anything like that.
I got it here. U.S. Space Command reports that Russia tested a space-based anti-satellite weapon in orbit July 15th, 2020. And then Space Force described the activity as, quote, hypocritical, which I'm not sure what that means. Below critical?
Yeah.
And concerning. So I don't exactly know what that means. So do we have anything that's like this? In other words, does Russia now have like a 5-year lead, and like they knock all our satellites out, and then by the time we develop it, it's too late?
Well, yeah, I think so. And at that point too, not that point, but to that point, they wouldn't need to EMP us at that, because an EMP we can stop with all of our grounded air missiles or whatever. If they're sending a nuke, because the best way to EMP somebody is to launch a nuke into space or into orbit, and to detonate it in space or low or high orbit or low orbit, however you want to say it, and that would just take out all of the satellites. But we can see missiles coming from miles away. We know we have a ton of systems ever since the 60s to see other countries' missiles, where they're going, when they're being launched. But if you have a satellite in space to take out other satellites, we have no warning system against that, at least that I know of, or anti-satellite killer.
So is it up, or is it just tested?
I think it's up, and they tested it in space. I
see.
Yeah.
That's definitely concerning, because I feel like if they're beating us in technology in space, then they kind of get to control space.
Yeah,
like because they would be the superior power in space.
I completely agree.
So we'd have to, our technology would start you can see why being competing like this is that like a lot of people like when you become behind as a country,
right?
There's a lot more at risk than just your society is going to have less. You're not going to have iPhones as soon as someone comes out with an iPhone. There's that threat, that danger threat of, okay, we have someone who can take out all our satellites and control our GPS, and we can't do anything about it. I think that's concerning.
Well, no, it is, but isn't that like
that's hypo?
That's hypocritical.
But
it's
almost critical.
Yeah, it's just below the skin.
Yeah,
it's hypo. But I mean, it's like 2 jumps from there to Red Dawn.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah,
because
100%.
Once you take out all of our stuff, we're blind.
Yeah,
we don't. I mean, I don't even know if anybody teaches Morse code anymore, right? I mean,
no.
we don't have any. Everything is up there, right?
Well,
even our cloud-based stuff, is that satellite too, or is that land?
That's server-based,
okay.
But so like the cloud is a big misconception about like what the cloud is or where it is.
Is the cloud just so far from this conversation we shouldn't have?
No. I don't think so, because I think the cloud's pretty important. But the cloud is basically a ton of servers, like giant server rooms and server farms that just store all your data, and then like you have like through your phone, say Google Photos or whatever, it's all stored in the cloud. It's all stored on servers that Google owns, and then you have like an access code through the app basically to tap into your data in like its segmented area. That's why they only give you like 10 gigabytes or whatever, and you can pay for more because you have your like 10 gigabyte slot, which is like William Manhire's Google Photos slot.
Is it on different servers, or my 10 gigabytes, or is it all on one?
I think
that one goes down, all my stuff goes down.
I don't know, and I'm sure they have backups of stuff. Yeah, they have redundancies. But I don't see why it would have to be all in one spot, other than like cutting down on like extra complications or anything like that. But yeah, the cloud is pretty much all. I mean, I think virtually all on the Earth. It just wouldn't make any sense to have giant data centers up in space, because a lot of data centers are still on hard drives, and hard disk drives are still spinning disk. We have solid state drives now, which are diskless, so it's all digital.
Yeah.
But since most of them are disks, they can, like earthquakes, can erase disks or make them malfunction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they can like damage them. Yeah, right, exactly. Right. So that's why a lot of servers have like these. Like a roll cage, but it's like
it stabilizes.
Stabilizes and stops the vibrations and stuff like that. Exactly, something like that. Yeah. Just as a buffer to stop like earthquakes and stuff like that. But if it was in space and it got dinged by something or whatever to happen, it'd just be huge. And drives fail all the time. So if you had to constantly be going up into satellites and then coming back down just to repair drives, it'd just be like not necessary at all.
So you got the satellite thing. They take out select satellites. They can take out all of them, I guess, but they can take out select satellites. We can't do anything about it, right? And then not only Red Dawn for the U.S., but we've talked about this before. A lot of prophecies say that communism is going to return to all the countries, right? Sister Lucia said that, and the guy who was interviewed, even the United States. This is 1950, right?
Yeah.
Not the United States.
Yeah,
no, even the United States. Which could come from couple different ways, right? It can come from the agents of chaos that are out there now, like our internal guys, or it can come externally. Or you could take out the European ones too, right?
Well, yeah.
So you can maintain your own satellite systems and just take out some bad other guys that you don't want, right?
The thing is,
you can sweep in.
America, I mean, China stuff does too, but mostly America, we have the majority of the satellites, like out of anybody. So, like, Europe uses most of our satellites. Like, we can, because they don't have a space program, or at least one to launch satellites. So they might fund some satellites, but as far as like who has direct control and who's launching these satellites, we're the ones that launch it, because we're the only ones with a space program. And the also thing is, a lot of our satellites that we've been launching have been through China or Russia, because for a long time we didn't have. I mean, ever since like the 70s, whenever we stopped launching things into space and NASA started losing its budget, we haven't been launching our satellites from America as much. A lot of them, we use China's team and their cosmonauts to launch our satellites and their ships, just because we didn't put funding into NASA, so there was no need to. And that's why SpaceX is such a big deal, because America's finally doing our own missions now. Like even all the resupplies and even trips to the International Space Station have pretty much all been to Russia. Like we send our guys to Russia, they get up in the spaceships and go up to the International Space Station, or they launch our satellites.
That's definitely concerning because we're not in good relations with those countries.
No, not
you know,
at all.
like
not at all.
It's not like us in the United Nations are
like
coming together and we're using space as an asset.
Right.
We're going through communist countries that are, I wouldn't even say potentially the enemy. I think they really are like a threat to our society and our security.
And we have been doing it for years.
Yeah.
So they've been, right?
Yeah.
Russia and China have been putting these things up.
Yeah, well,
we've been working with them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think China's too powerful for us to call them, like, to blatantly call them our enemy. But I think both us and China know, like, we are not at all friends and that we are enemies. Because China's been doing a bunch of spy stuff with Huawei and stuff like that. But even recently, TikTok, like the biggest app in the world right now, bigger than YouTube, bigger than Facebook, bigger than anything. It's the #1 social media, #1 internet thing.
I didn't know it was #1.
Yeah, no, it's massive. I mean, bigger than anything, bigger than Twitter. It's
India just
huge.
banned it.
Oh yeah, I heard
of the
about
spyware,
that.
right?
Yeah, because China, what they've been doing, at least the one thing we know that they've been doing is in your clipboard. So like that's where you copy and paste something.
Okay.
So it's not like it just saves one. Like you push copy and it just saves one thing. Your clipboard, which you can access through your keyboard and stuff like that, it like logs all the stuff you've been copying and pasting. So like any of your bank passwords or photos, revealing photos, anything, it'll be in your clipboard. And what they've been doing is saving everybody's clipboard data that have been using TikTok, and they know whose clipboard data is whose. So like, they know it's like, okay, device 44 whatever has this is their clipboard data, and they know, and then by that they know your name, they know probably where you live through their location data. I mean, and then through that they can just start to extrapolate and hack into your bank accounts, into your Twitter, into your Instagram.
Well, and we
get
copy
revealing
passwords,
photos.
right? You
Exactly.
just cut and paste passwords.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
In Storm too, and like in Volts, like on apps and stuff. That's an episode of Westworld. Have you seen Westworld?
No.
They first season, they're in the Westworld, and they break out of that, and then they're trying to break out of the actual facility, and it ends up being like a dozen different, like a China world and a samurai world and all these different things.
Right.
And then they AI escaped the facility, and now they're in the real world, and now they're going after, humanity.
Like Ex Machina, kind of.
Like the robots are going? Oh, yeah. Like the end of the night.
Yeah, but one of the high-level corporate companies has this database of people, and it's a tech company, and they have information on everybody on data like that, and then they started making connections. So like they look at your medical records and you'd be like, oh, you made a purchase, for some depression, like antidepressants. Oh, you have depression, and then they start like
profiling you.
Yep, and they have an AI in there like doing mass scaling and like all the probability, like they're calculating all the probabilities and stuff, and they're like, you're probably like there's like a 98% chance you're going to kill yourself.
That kind of sounds like pre-crime in a
like in a Minority
Report.
Yeah. Right, or that you're going to commit this crime, right?
Yeah.
Or that you're not going to pay your taxes.
Yeah. Well, you talk about like how we talked about earlier about statistics. It's all like they moved everyone to a statistical level where there's probability for all your actions and what you're going to do, what you amount to in life, what like when you're going to die.
Those are probably pretty accurate.
Yeah,
actuarial science has been around for insurance companies for hundreds of years as like, okay, there's the probability that a 25-year-old white male from Orlando, Florida is going to have an accident, right? And that's why your rates are higher or something like that if you put all these things, right?
What's also concerning about the data is that since most Americans, I don't say most, but most Americans that have smartphones and that are on the internet, a lot of them are using TikTok, like a majority of them are using TikTok. I mean, it's so huge. So even if you have, let's say, like a senator's daughter or something, like senator's son or something like that, that takes revealing photos or something like that, it's just in their clipboard. and then they get that TikTok data. That's easy blackmailing for anybody.
Yeah.
Or you can even do like these algorithms. You can go, okay, well, it looks like so and so is having an affair with so and so, and now you have a button to push them on and get them to do whatever you want.
Have we banned TikTok yet? The U.S.
No, we've been talking about it, and we know that it's
Mike Pompeo said something like that when India did it. He said, "Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of the president, but I can tell you we're taking action."
Yeah,
but that was
read that
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
we should ban it, but then I also know that. I mean, one, people are going to find a way to use it. I don't think it's as easy as like nobody used TikTok. I mean, with side loading, which is basically so they can take it off the App Store, but that doesn't mean it's not accessible because especially on Android, you can just side load literally anything, which means you just go onto the internet and the app files are called APKs.
So how did India do it, or are they have this?
I have no clue. I haven't looked into how India did it, other than they said that they're banning it. It might just be like a don't use TikTok and it's like punishable by law or whatever. But that's so hard to track and trace and see who's doing it. Or I mean, you can use a VPN and then get into like, I don't know, Saudi Arabia's Google Play Store and download from there. So it's not like it's super easy to just across the board say nobody's using TikTok and it's removed from everything because it's going to end up somewhere.
Does TikTok, like YouTube, have monetization options? In other words, can you be a TikToker and
you can
earn
make
money?
Oh yeah, they're making way more money than YouTubers, but it's not direct like through pre-roll ads like on YouTube. It's mostly through like brand deals and stuff like that, and then they help find like creators
pure
like
sponsorship.
Exactly. They'll set you up with like Nike or whatever.
So then I
do,
definitely
like,
have an incentive to use TikTok if I'm.
Oh yeah, they're making way more money than YouTubers are right now.
It doesn't matter if you're going to ban it. Then I'm just going.
Yeah, I'm just going to go VPN it or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Or where's
like how do you uninstall it from somebody's phone? You know, like if you already have it installed, then you're like, okay, it's banned now, and it's just like. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like the whole gun thing. Like, if we were to ban guns tomorrow, who's really going to go turn in their guns?
Right.
It's the same thing with, I think it's the same with TikTok. Like, who's going to uninstall the app? Or they're just going to say, yeah, I installed it, or I don't use TikTok, but you're still up until 3 in the morning using TikTok.
Right.
Yeah, I could see how that's complicated, especially if it's already on every phone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's pretty much on everybody from, like, everybody has a smartphone from, like, 9 to, like, 40 has TikTok. I mean, everybody's on TikTok. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. But
it should be, like, 19.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of like really not okay things on TikTok.
If you're older than 20.
Yeah, that's what I hear too.
Yeah, it's like really like illicit dancing and stuff like that. I don't use TikTok, so I don't really know what's on there. I just know from like the clips you see in people's like YouTube videos, like the memes or whatever. And I've seen like memes of it and stuff like that. But
so I thought it was
a bunch of like scantily clad 20-year-olds.
Let me share my
dancing.
dance. I can do the chicken dance. Watch me do the chicken dance. But then I hear like all this weird stuff.
I don't know about
it's like paranormal stuff's on TikTok and all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't even know anything about that. But I know it's like borderline like strip shows kind of stuff.
I can
sometimes
imagine.
On there.
Sure,
yeah, like,
it's not censored or regulated.
Yeah, well, and there's the whole problem of like some of these people that are doing this are like 15 or like 14 or 16, and it's like, well, when is
mature? Well, I don't know what.
But I mean, the creators. At what point is it like, okay, this is kind of like child pornography, but you know?
So why can't you do that like on Instagram or something?
Because they ban it. I mean,
Twitter doesn't. Twitter. You could find disgusting stuff all over Twitter.
Really?
Yeah. And
who's they? Instagram? When you say they ban it?
Yeah, Instagram is a company.
Which is Facebook.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, Facebook owns it.
I don't know.
Okay. They ban anything that's like illicit. I mean, you can find like people in like bikinis and stuff like that if you want to, but a lot of the stuff, especially when it comes to like younger people, they're on top of that kind of stuff. At least supposedly. But TikTok like promotes that. Like that's like their whole platform.
That's weird. I didn't know that. I could see why, you know, Facebook would want to censor stuff like that because it's not really right, you know. And Twitter, this is what I would take from Twitter is that Jack Dorsey wants the entire company to just be a town hall for the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
But they have committees that when people get banned, you know, they just I don't know if I'm using anecdotally the right word or I'm not using that. They subjectively, as a little group, they're like they take it case by case. So he had a lawyer on Joe Rogan's podcast, and him and Jack Dorsey, and they had a reporter there too because they wanted to get to the bottom of this because like Twitter's targeting conservatives,
right?
And so like for example, O.J. Simpson's on Twitter. Well, he's a convicted murderer, you know. Yeah. So like,
So he was found not guilty criminally, but the civil trial.
Oh, he didn't go to jail.
No. I think it was wrongful death.
No, so the criminal trial he was found not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but in the civil trial, because then the family sued him civilly to say, well, we want some damages for wrongful death.
Yeah,
and they found that he was liable, which is the civil version of guilty.
Yeah,
but it's a lower standard. It's not beyond a reasonable cause. But I think to your point, almost everybody in America says, I watched that trial.
Yeah.
Dude was guilty.
And I read his book. I read his book about if I killed my wife. I didn't kill my wife, but if I did.
But if I did, here's exactly how I would have done it.
Yeah.
You'll find something over here in this shrub.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess for my for my argument, that's a bad example then.
But there are plenty of others.
There's other people, You know, so when you have these conservative, I think her name is Megan Murphy. She's like, there's only two genders. That's all she said. Yeah. Like, she's just like scientifically, it's a scientific fact that there's only two genders.
Two sexes,
That's just that's our science right now. If it changes, whatever. But that's what our science states. So it's not an incorrect statement. It's not, it's
like saying
political or it's not racist or sexist or anything like that. She's just saying
even
a fact.
if it's just an opinion. Let's say the science, like it was contested, right? And say, well, in my opinion, they're just two.
Pluto's a planet. Yeah.
Right. Pluto's a planet. Right.
Right. Yeah.
She's gone.
She's gone.
And cancel culture. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I know Megan. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
She's a Fox contributor sometimes. She's a young Asian. No.
I don't know her face. Yeah. I just know her name.
Google will help us.
Yeah, I was going to say Google. No.
Yeah, the big brother.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. So. She was gone.
Yeah, so she's gone for, stating a fact, where, and when there's plenty of other people who are having their opinions on, whatever. So, what's the question was, what's Twitter's policy? Because the thing is that, especially, social media and especially Twitter, I mean, we have countries' presidents on there.
Yeah.
It's now become a form of politics where it affects way more than
just mom and pop.
Just being like some fun social media. So like when someone who's in that position that gets their free speech from the internet infringed upon, you could argue that So the question was, what context is Twitter doing this, taking away their privilege to interact.
I think that's the whole argument right now with like, should we? I don't know if Trump's the one doing it, but I know the government's looking into rebranding social media as I think publishers instead of
so what was
a platform, so they have some like liability and like you can't just ban people or take away their right to talk, because I do think there's a real conversation to be had about. So Twitter it's like the one place you go to have these conversations.
Right.
And we're getting to the point where a lot of people and a lot of politicians are talking about how the internet is turning into like a civil right, like especially during the whole COVID thing where some people can't work now because they don't have the internet or they don't have internet access, and they're out in like Starbucks parking lots just trying to get internet access, where it's like, okay, well, what point is, or at this point, the internet is like kind of necessary. Like everybody
like electricity
needs,
or water,
exactly,
as a utility. Yeah,
exactly. So, and since Twitter is the like de facto platform to talk on, like someone can't just go make their own Twitter and like start their own thing. So like Twitter has a responsibility to be a place where you can share your opinions and talk on the internet without it being like, okay, well, we disagree with you and we're going to ban you. Because it's not like you can just go do anything else. Like, so the argument can't be made that, well, if you don't like the way Twitter, does things, we'll just go talk on some other platform.
Right.
There's no other real, other than like Reddit, there's no other real platform to talk on other than Twitter. So there should be some liability there.
And there's been attempts too.
Yeah.
So
there's a conservative one. I can't remember what it's called, but everybody's saying go to that one instead.
Yeah, and I heard it's
and to Will's point, right? The legal issue is that. So if I'm the Washington Post and I print something that is libelous, it's false and it's harmful, it's defamatory, then the Washington Post can be liable for doing that. This is why the guy, the MAGA kid with the red hat from Covington, and
from the Native American,
right? He just settled $2 multi-million suits against Washington CNN because of what they were saying. Now, they sued CNN. CNN here would be Twitter, and Twitter says, whoa, 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 whoa.
Right.
We don't determine what's going on
exactly.
here.
It's a town hall.
But obviously they do, though.
But they do.
Exactly.
And so they're saying, wait a second, as soon as you start using editorial discretion, you're really a publication. You're not a platform. So sorry. You're liable.
Yeah.
So so that I know he's talked about that, Trump, but I'm interested in what that lawyer on Rogan said. What did he say?
It's just, I don't know. Well, so the premise is that they have these groups of people committees that will look at a case. So if something gets reported, or if they think that something deserves to be banned or have a suspension, they have a group that subjectively handles that, which Twitter can do what they want because there is no regulation as far as,
it's a private company.
But they're very subjective with the criteria on what it means. There is no public criteria. That's
same thing with Google, by the way, and YouTube. You don't know why. They'll just say you're either banned or you're not going to get money anymore.
Demonetized.
Like why? Like, well, you didn't abide by my regulations. Which part?
Exactly.
Well, you just didn't abide. So is there an appeal process? No.
Yeah, that's the whole adpocalypse thing that's been happening on YouTube. Yeah.
And then the YouTube said the same thing because they were pulling people who were saying things like coronavirus and COVID. And they're like, and they were saying. They were saying things that were just ideas, like, "Hey, whatever their idea was, and take this pill might help or something like that." They weren't even
like remedies
advocating; thing, they were just talking about it. And YouTube pulled them, and they went on the news and they said, "Anything that doesn't align with the CDC's recommendations, we're pulling down. We're pulling down." Okay, whoa. Okay, so. That means that anybody who has an opinion outside of the CDC's recommendations, by the way, the CDC might actually agree with them. It's just not public that they're recommending it right yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing is if forgot where I was going to go with that, but Facebook, because Zuckerberg, didn't he make a decision like I'm not going to ban certain types of ads or talk or something like that?
Yeah, he did.
And didn't like his senior vice president and their team walk out because they wanted to ban some Trump stuff?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
and
that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, and they said, wait a second, we have a right to make sure that the fascist Trump doesn't get his word out there. And Zuckerberg said, I'm not going to, probably because his lawyers said, you're not going to be a publisher. You're going to have to be a platform. You have to, but they wouldn't go back to work. They were on strike.
Wow.
And it wasn't just any political talk or anything.
Specifically
Trump.
Wow.
Conservative voices, to Jack's point.
Yeah.
Well, have you guys heard of the whole shadow banning thing too with Twitter?
I've heard.
So I've heard of it. What is that?
Yeah. So it was a rumor for a long time that just kind of basically that Twitter could ban you without you, one, getting a notice, and then two, them saying we didn't ban you, but my account's gone. And I could just not here anymore, and I can't tweet or anything like that. And for a while, I don't know if they were publicly denying it, but they were at least not commenting on it. And people were talking about it all the time. But then very recently, I don't know if you guys heard about this, a lot of famous people, I know Elon Musk got hacked. I think Warren Buffett got hacked on Twitter.
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah. So basically, there was some giant breach. I don't know if it was with VPNs or something. I can't remember what exactly with. But some company had a giant breach, security breach, and a bunch of hackers got a hold of a ton of passwords and data and stuff like that. And they were selling them on the internet for $200 for just data people's accounts. Yeah, and so they got into Elon Musk's account and a couple of the admin on Twitter's accounts. And then they saw, and they posted screenshots that there is a shadow ban button. There's a button, it's a black button. It's just something like shadow ban or something like that.
Yeah.
And it does shadow ban people. So they can...
You mean like the Twitter people?
Yeah,
do this?
The Twitter admins. They can ban you and then say we didn't ban you, or we just don't know what you're talking about, and you don't get an official ban notice.
Right.
It's not like this account's been removed. It's just gone. The complete account's wiped. All your tweets are gone. Everything's gone.
You know who's talking about something similar
happened a week ago.
is some conservative guys on YouTube that have shows, and they're especially religious ones like Catholic shows like Return to Tradition. He, every month or two, has to say to everybody, hey, I know you probably subscribed, but hit subscribe again because YouTube goes and does a bot clean, quote unquote. But what they're doing is they're It's funny who actually loses their subscribers. Right. It's only a certain type of folk that lose their subscribers, and so he has to keep on reminding him, say, you may have been unsubscribed, and he can see on his stats, like all of a sudden I have like a third of my subscribers are gone, which for him, I know, like a lot of these guys, they got families, and they rely in part on what they're trying to do with YouTube on every day posting twice a day or whatever, is to create a regular monetary stream, right? And they're trying to build up, but you're going against the headwind for a platform that keeps on saying, no, we're going to keep cutting you at the ankles, and up at the knees on that.
Which is I think is scary as a society, just because, when you talk about the First Amendment, and we talk about free speech, when conservatives and Catholics and Christians are getting targeted for what they say, and they get, botted or banned or, anything like that, they lose their voice, and kind of like what we were talking about, like, the internet is now at a point where it really is, it's like electricity, it's a very common, it's hard to function without the internet.
It's a utility.
It really is a utility, depending on how you use it, but it's, everything we use relies on the internet. So to have, and a lot of our information comes from the internet.
It's like being able to read
like TV too, like when the TV.
That's true.
Like when
we don't
TV
have cable, we don't have anything.
No.
All of our entertainment comes to the internet, all of our news, all of our information, everything. Right?
More and more people are cutting cable nowadays. I know even Hannah's parents just cut cable because they're like, we just don't need it.
Yeah. And so it's becoming this thing of everyone's using it for their information, everyone's using it to learn, everyone's using it for entertainment.
Work.
Exactly. And a lot of people make their living, like you were saying, off these platforms, and to have that subjected on an opinion, it seems wrong. And it seems even more, I don't want to say, I don't know what's happening, in these groups, but the fact that Christians and conservatives are they're primarily being targeted, we're not seeing a bunch of
liberals aren't getting shut down.
Or any of the crazy stuff that's going on, even out there. Everyone's got everyone just can pretty much do whatever they want.
Well, I don't think it's hidden. I think the platform admins are saying, no, we have an obligation to fight fascism.
Yeah, that's the weirdest part. Is it's in the name of liberty.
It's in the name of liberty, in the name of free speech, in the name of rights. That we need to stop this hate speech.
Super ironic.
No, it is
super ironic. The anti-fascists are turning into the fascists, which is kind of funny, because their whole movement, or even with the Black Lives Matter thing, it's the whole. We're here to stop racism. But I mean, this just happened not too long ago where I can't remember what state it is, but there's a state where they're doing people, not even cops, they're doing traffic stops for certain bridges and stuff and certain roads. They're like, oh, you're an old white. There's videos of this. It's crazy. Like, you're an old white couple. You're not allowed to use this bridge.
What?
For the name? Yeah, for the name.
Who are they? Just a group,
I don't know if it's BLM or if it's Antifa or who it is, but
they're like self-policing.
Yes,
this is now I have access to this bridge. I have the
and you don't have the right to use this bridge in the name of diversity, in the name of equal opportunity. And it's like, this isn't what Martin Luther King wanted. This is the exact opposite, because you're saying you're being anti-racist, but you're really just being the most racist out of anybody.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's really bad.
But it's not even rational, because a rational thing would be like, well, you see that is actually not diverse and not tolerant.
Yeah, and then it's you're a bigot,
and then you shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up, racist, white supremacist. Yeah. So there's no engagement anymore. I mean, even the whole idea of we just have to have a dialogue, that's not possible.
No, it's not.
Yep. That's not possible, and we have to put that away. So Tammy Duckworth, they goes, well, we have to have a national discussion, or Biden, or even Pope Francis. We have to have a national dialogue. There's no dialogue. There's no dialogue. They're screaming and yelling and emotion, and we run out of intellectual gas.
Yeah.
So all that's left is my subjective, as you said, reaction.
Right.
And so my reaction, by the way, isn't dependent on the validity of your argument.
No, it's not. This sounds good.
We are completely in a sea of chaos, and it's just it is might makes right, which is a fascist tenet.
Yeah, it is.
Right? And yet they're saying we're anti-fascist, which, by the way, is a communist tactic, and the communist tactic is to make sure that you are putting anti-fascist messages out there, because everybody says, fascism is bad.
Exactly.
That's totalitarianism, that's dictatorships and stuff like that, and we need to band together as a community, and we need to share things, but we need to stop those damn fascists, right?
Well, I think that whole thing's just a strategy of the left in general nowadays. I mean, even with things like pro-choice, where it's just like, choice is good. So, I mean, I'm not anti-choice, where they'll label things as like super simple and good for the community, where they're not talking about like, no, we're actually for like, killing babies. It's like, no, we're pro-choice.
Yeah.
They're labeling as this is obviously a good, and how are you not,
right.
how are you not for this? We're like, that's not really.
And that tactic's been around for a while.
Yeah.
And then what I'm seeing, at least having seen that labeling tactic of saying, okay, clearly we're not having the same conversation. Pro-life and pro-choice. I used to say it's a communication problem, because we're not using the same language. And so when I say this, you're hearing it as something different.
Yeah.
We're never going to meet. I think now it's just a blatant, there is no I'm not even going to stick around for the conversation.
No, I'm just going to scream, shut up. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to shut up, and maybe even you need to die. You need to die. You at least need to be incarcerated. You at least need to be gotten out of here. You're not allowed to go on the bridge. You're not allowed to do this, right? And you need to die.
Yeah.
So,
right?
So you're making me uncomfortable. So not only am I going to make you uncomfortable,
I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to kill you.
You need.
And then I won't be uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I do think that. I mean, me and Jack had this conversation not too long ago, where I do think that also speaks to like the internal feelings of these people. Is that I think that they. A part of them knows that they're doing something that is just not morally acceptable, and
you think so?
I think even if they don't consciously recognize it, I think it is there, because I mean, for like pretty much everything. Let's say I like Star Wars and you don't. You're not going to kill me or demand me validating you in not liking Star Wars or liking Star Wars if I disagree with you. But when it comes to things that are inherently, I mean, just against the natural laws, and you have to bring God into this, I think you can just, like C.S. Lewis did, just break it down to like what is, a natural, obvious good and not.
Right.
Where like things like killing babies, not good, but or even homosexuality, where you're so like entrenched in your opinion and your ways, even though a part of you feels like I don't feel okay about this, and that's why most homosexuals are addicted to drugs and clubbing, and a lot of them end up killing themselves into with transgender communities.
And post-abortions.
Yeah, and post-abortions is, I think that they really do feel bad on the inside, not know what that feeling is, and then as soon as you don't validate them, they demand your validation, and then once you continue to go, I don't validate you and you're wrong and evil, they go, well, you're going to have to die, because I can't live in a world where people aren't going to validate me because it's my immoral decision.
Right.
So.
Everybody, I mean, in a way, it's a kind of a participation trophy. Like, wait a second, I have somebody who doesn't agree with me. I don't feel safe and comfortable.
That's a whole
and
safe
I'm not
space argument,
so
too.
wait a second, you have to go, and then I'll feel safe, right? And it's not even, why don't you go over to that club because they belong to that?
Yeah.
We need to die.
You need to die.
You need to die.
Yeah.
Because I might see you again. The thought of you is actually making me really, really uncomfortable right now.
It's a microaggression.
So,
your existence is a microaggression.
Exactly. And there's no way I'm going to be able to show up for my exam if you're alive.
Yeah.
Now, I used to think that was ha ha ha. That'll never happen. And yet,
it's
in the last,
right now.
I'd say in the last 2 months, 4 months, I can't say that anymore. No. I can't say anything close. The bridge thing is a good example of going, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That sounds fake.
It sounds like you made that up. Yeah. You made that up, or you heard something wrong, or it's a telephone game.
Or if that was in a book, that's unbelievable. Now it'll never happen.
Right. It would be like
stranger than fiction.
That's exactly right. But now it's like all bets are off. Everything is so. And what do we do? I mean, you guys both know more psychology than I do, but there's something that I heard that the human mind will try to rationalize what it can't understand. Yeah. So if I hear a bump or a tapping on the wall, my brain will try everything it can to say, that's something natural and not scary and not threatening, and I can just go to sleep and forget about it.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty crazy. Because, I mean, it can be something insane, as like something so in your face, like, oh, it has to be this, but if it scares you or makes you uncomfortable or whatever, your brain will try to manipulate into the fact, like, no, it can't be that.
So that's a real thing, right?
Yeah,
that's a real psychological thing.
100%.
So you've got a whole bunch of people. So you've got a small group of people that are the batshit crazy, okay? The BSCs, the BLM BSC, the batshit crazy BLM, okay? And then you've got, they call it the woke.
Yeah, right.
quote, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you've kind of got the woke side on the other end that goes, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And this is
Right.
real.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely insane. And I need to go get 100 acres somewhere because pretty soon I'm not going to be able to buy groceries
Yeah.
because I'm an old white guy or something like that, right?
Exactly.
And then you've got this majority that their psychology is protecting them to say, this isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is no.
100%.
You guys are blowing this up out of proportion. Everything's normal, right? Everything's right. Everything's normal.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Everything's normal. And let's just go back to watching. Let's go back to watching a show. Let's get football back on as soon as we can, so we can get back to normal. Because it will be back.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Everything. When are we getting back to normal? It's a when, not even an if.
Right.
And the other ones are saying, I never want it to be normal again. And the folks over here, the woke right, if you will, are saying, it's never going to be the same again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? And the other ones are just blind.
Yeah.
This kind of goes to your sheepdog sheep.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Tell the story. You tell it better than I do.
So, there's the. So I actually just learned that there's I think it's a Marine Corps general who actually coins this term, but it was said in American Sniper, and so.
Oh, like when the dad at the beginning, yeah.
Yep.
In the movie.
So Chris's dad is telling Chris that there's three types of people in the world. There's wolves, there's sheep, and there's sheepdog. And the sheepdog protect the sheep, and the wolves target the sheep.
Yeah.
So this is the way I see it. It's funny because I actually just heard two military guys talking about this about the country yesterday. Like,
oh, really?
It's kind of funny. So it's not just an original thought, or it's not just like
it's in the world.
It's in the like,
theorizing.
guys,
People are there's conservatives who, especially militaries, who I think are just familiar with the term, who are like, this is just a good way of looking at it. So most of the country, just by nature, most of the world, just by nature, are sheep. And when I say sheep, there's going to be people who are like, I'm not a sheep, I'm a sheepdog.
Right. Everybody thinks they're a sheep.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No one wants to just be called the sheep.
Nobody thinks we're a wolf.
But exactly. Yeah. So
I think a lot of the wolves think they're sheepdogs.
That's true.
The thing is
that's true.
Yeah, they're like,
you're the
protecting
sheep.
the people.
Trump's the sheep. The wolf. Trump's the wolf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're protecting the people by.
So this is my thought. I think the true wolf knows he's a wolf. When we talk about Hitler, Stalin,
I wonder though, because I do think. I think Aquinas talks about this. It's just a really old idea. Is that no person does evil for the sake of evil. They do it thinking that it's an inherent good.
I think this is a yes and, because yes will, and I know what Jack's about to say, and let's put it this way. The wolves in the scenario you're about to lay out, Jack, think they're doing the right thing, but their tactic is what I think is
gotcha.
You're gonna talk about the tactic of the sheep.
Well,
right, rising up against.
Exactly. It's the sheep are getting frustrated, so there's you mentioned this, where you were like, they think they know what they're doing, and I think on a unconscious level, you're absolutely right. There's that validation of you feel it. I literally just killed a baby. However I try to rationalize it,
something's off.
That just happened. So there's going to be a natural reaction to that, and that's where you get the I'm feeling guilty, but I made the right decision, right? It was
right, Tim. Yeah, I'm good, right? I'm a good person. Yeah,
right, exactly. So there's definitely that element. But if to me, this is just what I see is, I genuinely think especially the left, they genuinely believe that what they're standing for really is morally correct, and it's packaged like that too, right? Like you were saying,
so I totally agree that they think they're morally correct, but I do think they go home every day and find themselves really sad.
100%. Yeah. And this is
which I think drives their I'm sad because this stuff isn't fixed yet, or I'm sad because everybody else is oppressing me.
Right.
Where it's like, no, you're really oppressing yourself in a sense that you're the ones doing this behavior that's making you sad.
Yeah.
You're I think it's the same thing with a lot of obese people that are like, I'm not fat. Oh, my obesity isn't unhealthy. Doctors are just telling me that's unhealthy, and that's oppression. And that's why I'm sad and feel bad about myself. Isn't because I'm, obese, diabetic, and my body feels like crap because I've eaten Whataburger for the last 3 years straight. You know, like my endorphins are super low because I don't go out and run or anything like that. And they attribute all of that as like this one cure-all, as in it's the doctor's fault or whoever's fault because they're fat shaming me, and I'm actually beautiful. I'm actually really healthy, and this isn't going to take 30 years off my life. Right. That's just all propaganda that the doctors are doing. So we need to get rid of the doctors and tell everybody that this is healthy. And I think it's the same thing with gender dysphoria. I'm not. I don't know. Gender dysphoria is like the whole transgender thing that like because for a long time
you're sad because of you think you're sad because of the gender
that you're living in the wrong.
It
was in the DSM-5 and all the ones before that, which is the psychology book of like disorders. Gender dysphoria, which is I think I'm a woman but I'm a man, and that's a diagnosable like clinical insanity to a sense. It's a disorder, and that was just removed because of the same thing where they were like, that's what's oppressing me. This idea that I'm crazy, but I'm not. Obviously, I'm not crazy, and that's what's making me feel so bad about myself. Not that I actually am. I do have a mental health issue, and I need help with that. It's that society is oppressing me, and that's why I feel so bad about myself.
So the victim talk becomes something that you believe.
Yeah,
right.
So I didn't go off on the tangent. Go ahead and go back.
No, but back to the
wolf. I think that's important. Yeah.
But even if, but let me put it this way: a wolf knows they're a wolf.
Yeah.
It's just that they believe that eating sheep is the way I live. That's good.
Yeah.
So I mean, so they're still a wolf.
That whole labeling of a wolf is oppressive.
Right.
Yeah.
But in this thing,
wolves are good people.
Right. Yeah. So absolutely, you're right. But
so the wolves can either go in and attack the sheep, and that doesn't going to work because the sheepdogs are there, right?
Right.
So they got to choose a different strategy.
Right. So the majority of the population are sheep. Then what would follow that would be the sheepdog, and I think at the lowest population are wolves. So I don't think that everyone, burning Madison Avenue right now and all these riots and looting and stuff, I don't think they're wolves. Whatever is driving them to do that, whether it's even just they genuinely just want to go get shoes,
Yeah, I think
and they feel like it's okay.
I really think that's a big part of it is that social mentality of, people are stealing TVs. I can get a free TV right now.
Right.
It's
which still makes them sheep.
It still makes them sheep.
That's what I was going to say.
Sheep are very subjective to the culture.
Right. They're followers.
They just are followers. Yeah. If we're in masses and we're burning this, we're burning we're burning Congress and stuff.
Yeah, we can burn stuff.
We're all doing it.
Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think they're wolves. I don't think So I think that's important to look at is that these aren't wolves and they're not capable of actually being sheepdog. And what I mean by that is that they're not thinking this thing all the way through, and they're not doing it to protect anybody.
Yeah.
Whether they claim they do or not, and this is what I mean by I genuinely think when we talk about,
and that's why they're sheep. They're just following.
They're just following. Right. Yeah. And but we're also human beings, so we all naturally have a moral compass, and so when it's packaged like this, and you want to talk about, in this analogy, the wolves are how do you start communism? How do you generate fascism? Well, you make anti-fascism. Well, how do you make that appealing? Well, everyone in the right mind doesn't want fascism,
or racism,
So then the sheepdogs are fascist and racist. Sheep rise up,
exactly.
Because then the wolves can just come in.
Exactly. I mean, that's the strategy of the wolves. They can't come after the sheep if there's a bunch of sheepdogs. And I think
turn the sheep against the sheepdogs.
How do you because we can't take out.
I think it's a classic move of the devil. Even
I was going to say it's very diabolical.
It's fair. That hey, we're the good guys. Come to us.
I'm going to give you all these things.
I love you the way you are. Come over here.
And then I'm going to throw you under the bus.
Exactly.
All the people that are protecting you, they're evil. They're the ones oppressing you.
Okay, you've lived your use, and now you're dead.
Exactly.
Your lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, at the end, it's definitely evil. But so I think 100 years ago, when from what I would gather, is that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party were there was a lot of disagreements on how we should operate the country and stuff. But what I believe is that there was a true existence of, well, we are all Americans and we all want what's best for America.
Democrats didn't have to die.
Yeah, Democrat. Yeah. There was, there was arguments and stuff, and Congress fought.
Even in the 80s, they would do that and they'd have a beer together.
Right. Yeah. There was just this general. Again, I'm born in 1996. I wasn't there, but that's the impression I have.
I think anybody that says it was all rainbows and unicorns is being too optimistic, because there were a lot of people that thought, with McCarthyism and stuff, there were some people pointing fingers.
Well, the Black
Panther that was
movement
rare.
Like that,
Right.
Yeah.
That was an exception to the rule, but it did get worse.
Yeah.
After the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it slowly got worse and worse and worse now. And now I think the fruit is ripe.
Yeah.
That bad fruit that you're talking about. So you're not off.
Yeah.
It was not as bad as it is now. I think that's very, very clear.
Yeah.
To an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot more understanding of human dignity. That we're like, at the end of the day, we're all people, and we all have. I think we all believed in like the Constitution and like inalienable rights and stuff like that. Where I don't.
We had
think,
a common thing.
Yeah, I don't think nowadays a lot of people, or at least the people that are starting these movements, think that at all. I think there's humans, and I think it's actually true racism. Where there's humans and there's like subhuman, but in an idea sense, like an ideology sense. So
right.
Like,
no, if you think conservatively, you are subhuman.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very Nazi Germany in that
it
sense.
is. 100%.
We've got to make you into. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That way, I don't lose sleep at night when I wish you to be dead.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't have like a right to life because of your ideas.
You're not a human.
Which is very like almost 1984, like thought police and stuff like that.
It's about Orwell.
Yeah, in 1984.
It's very much thought police. In fact, I think the thought police have emerged.
Oh,
That's
I think so
scary.
too. I think that's
and
the
it's
whole
coming
social
through the
justice warrior
television
movement.
Well, it's coming through
television just like
that's a really
before.
good point.
Yeah.
They're listening.
Have you
to
exercised?
Social
Like you said
media
with
and all that stuff. Yeah,
with that TikTok stuff, even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go to the bathroom.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Yes, continue.
The
You always want to keep recording?
Yeah, just continue.
All right.
So I didn't read 1984, but what I heard was said in what Orwell said is that, I don't know what the thought police actually are, but so maybe you can explain that. But he said in that book, quoted, that we're not prepared for the psychological consequence of being attacked in the way we're being attacked right now as conservatives, because when we're being called racist and fascists and neo-Nazis, and all these different things, we're not those things, so like when we actually get identified as those things, it's like, well, I'm really not, I'm not this, and then it's like, it's kind of that psychological, this is what Orwell was saying, is that as human beings, we're not ready to be able to take those types of attacks.
Interesting.
Which I thought was really interesting, and it's pretty true too, because and you see this all the time when the left just will say something, like, you're being racist. If the person on the other side of the argument or debate isn't prepared to actually counter argue that, they kind of freeze up, because they're like, wait, hold on, I'm not a racist, because I think racism is evil, so like, it's straight up persecution, as far as being labeled something that you're not, and being identified as something that you're not, in a community, again,
without the opportunity to even say and prove that you're not. So I'm going to label you this. And I mean, anybody that says conservatives are fascists, most conservatives, goes in one ear out the other.
Yeah,
that's not true.
You're crazy.
And it might be the same with communists and leftists. Like, we're not communists. They know what they're talking about.
There's a scary amount of people who, like, way more than I thought, who are like, no, we know what we're doing.
There's a lot of pro-socialists nowadays.
No, there
that's
is
a really big movement. Is like, and okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say. So when I say that they know what they're doing, they don't actually know what they're doing. They, but they think that communism and socialism is the utopia.
Yeah,
right.
That like, this is how we get to a perfect society.
So remember Canonical for Leibowitz, where everything cycled all the way through, where they destroyed each other in a nuclear war, and it's basically 1,500 years later, and you're at the same point, and they destroy each other in a nuclear war. Yeah. I think we've gone through the 100 years since the Bolshevik Revolution, And in 1989, the wall came down, and you guys weren't born.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a whole generation plus that thinks that's a fairy tale.
Right.
Or, that says, okay, no, that was political Russias. They screwed it up. I'm talking about real.
It was a long time ago.
And I'm talking about real communism. I'm talking about Marxist communism, not the Russian thing. And this is real. And all of us old guys are going, wait a second.
This already happened.
This didn't work too well. But then you got the Bernie Sanders who are old, and then when you say like Mike Bloomberg in the debates, Democratic debates, he said, "Well, we tried communism already; it didn't work." And Sanders was like, "Whoa! I'm against any totalitarianism. I'm talking about socialism."
Yeah, well,
like it's the same flipping thing.
Literally, that's what I was gonna say. Is that I've heard a lot that.
But he comes out and says, "I'm a socialist."
Yeah. But I've also heard where people go like, well, "What about China? They're socialists." Like, okay, well, that's not like socialism done perfectly. And the problem is that there's not been a time in history where anybody has done communism or socialism perfectly. And that's what we need to do, is do it perfectly, where everybody agrees on it and everybody's for the same.
They have not run animal farm.
Exactly. But I think
it can't be done that way.
Yeah, and
fallen human nature doesn't allow it.
Right. Yeah, and I think the ironic part is that Matt Fred was talking about this in this podcast, is that they're anti-capitalist. Most of these people are like, well, capitalism doesn't work. We've done it for a while. It's obvious. Right. And then you can make the same argument. They're like, well, I'm talking about a perfect capitalism, a capitalism that everybody's on board for. There's an Acton Institute arm that does argue that kind of, right? Yeah. That does say, wait a second, there is a perfect form of classical liberalism, capitalism. Yeah, there is.
And we're just not there.
The whole free markets and
the free
market.
So maybe it's just as, what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That one guy, Bitcoin and everything. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Jeffrey,
mattress dude.
Yeah. We went to a conference and this guy was.
And he's like, I'm not paid to talk about these mattresses, but these mattresses are the best. Let me give you their card.
Jeffrey Tucker.
Yeah, Jeffrey Tucker.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, where the whole the free market, it's idealism. Honestly, it's just an idealist thought. Is that if we do the free market and everything's completely free, the free market will take care of itself. Well, what about like roads and interstates and stuff like that? Like, the free market will take care of it.
Right.
What about regulations? The free market will take care of it. Like, it's just this. I think it's the same thing with this idea of communism and socialism. That if we're all on the same boat, we're just all going to take care of each other, and everybody's just going to agree. Nobody's going to abuse the power, and then nobody's going to abuse the power. Right. And it's like, well, all the people work. But all those people will be dead. Yeah, exactly. All the evil socialists, they'll all be
just
dead.
like in the Bolshevik Revolution, we killed the Tsar and his ministers, right?
Yeah,
Wait, and so they're all gone. So only the good folks are left. Mm-hmm. And then someone goes, "Oh, here's an opportunity for me to take over."
Well,
and that's humanity.
Yep. Yeah, and the funny thing is also that what I don't think that a lot of them are thinking about is that you're going to get to a point, let's say you have 4 kids and you work a full-time job and all that stuff and you're a socialist or whatever, and then you're going to go, I don't really have time to vote and go to the town hall every Tuesday and discuss these problems. So I'm just going to pick this guy to do it. And we're all going to agree that this guy should do it. And then he's going to go, yeah, I'll do it for you. And then you're just going to slowly start to devolve in either capitalism or dictatorship.
You've got it. That's a really good point.
Yeah, which I don't think they're thinking about. They're in this utopic idea, like what you're talking about, that is that we're all going to be constantly motivated to do work for the common good and for the state or whatever. And the idea is that the state's not going to control us, we're going to control us. But then you become the state, then you elect the state, and the state's controlling it. I mean, the only difference between a state and not a state is a word, and if you're calling yourself the state or not the state, because you quickly devolve into the state.
That's the democratic socialism. Yeah. No, we're all a part of it, so it's all one big leviathan.
It becomes this.
And actually, the sociology studies have shown that anything up to 150 people, you can actually probably maintain that.
Yeah,
like early Christian communities.
Well, I was going to say, like monasteries do like a communism.
Yes, it's a commune.
Yeah, besides that, there is a dictator of sorts.
There is a rule that everybody agrees we're going to abide by, but it allows for. I mean, if there are abuses, the abuses will, But you're right; it does work for that because everybody's there. We're all on the same page. I'm here for the same reason you are. Yeah. I signed up for the same thing. After about 150 people, factions start to break out. We say, well, I actually don't agree with that. I think we should do it this way. And that's even happened in monasteries. That's why you have the Trappists and the Benedictines that comes out of it, right? They start to break out. But it's been proven that in anything above 150 people, roughly, it ain't going to work. It is just not going to work. But you're right. You're absolutely right, Will. They think it's a democratic ideal. They don't think through it. Going back to your sheep idea, everybody's just following along. That makes sense. Yeah, man.
Right.
That makes sense.
And I haven't read anything about it. I just heard one guy.
I heard we live in soundbite. We live in soundbite world. Nobody wants to go past the soundbite.
Yeah.
And, didn't read too long, didn't read society. And I'm not going to read past the soundbite. All I care about is how I feel.
And we're on Twitter too much to actually think about, well, is this a good idea, and what are the repercussions of this, and what are the implications, and how does this trickle down 5 years down the road and stuff like that. It's like, well, that sounds like a good idea. Now back to Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, that's right.
And
absolutely.
you don't actually think about it. And then when somebody brings it up, I go, well, what do you think about socialism? They're like, well, I think it's a great idea because they heard Joe Schmo talk about it last week, and all they know is that he said that I get free college, I don't have to pay my student debt anymore. Yeah. It's like, well, that's fantastic. I'm a socialist. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah, and they're repeating the sound bites, repeating the propaganda talk, but nobody's thought through it.
No one.
Well, there's a huge part who are thinking through it.
Yeah.
And they're all conservatives.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what the final point of what I was going to say about the sheepdog and the sheep is that, I think to finish my thought, 100 years ago, I think there were sheepdogs on both sides. When World War II happened, everyone was going. I'm sure even when 9/11 happens, both sides, whatever household you grew up, there was some incentive
there was
to go.
6 month period where everybody was on the same side.
Yeah, those great tragedies bring everybody together.
Yeah. But now we're at a point where the left, which unfortunately are just all sheep now, and they're not thinking through these things. They're 100%. Not thinking about what's going to happen 10 years from now. They're not going to think about what our economy is going to look 10 years from now.
They're not thinking a year from now. They just know that 1350 sounds good if they're working at McDonald's.
Exactly. And what they're not thinking about is that when you raise the minimum wage to 1350, is that you're now cutting businesses,
cutting jobs.
And
you have 10 employees instead of 40.
And they're going to cut your hours too now. So if you were working 40 hours at $9 an hour, now you're going to work 20 hours at $13.50. Yeah. So you're either making more or you're making the same. It doesn't work. They're just
looking at one side of the equation and not balancing out on the other.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately,
it's all about me getting more.
Exactly.
That number sounds good to me.
Yeah. Exactly, because that makes sense.
That's more than I have now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
so 100 years ago, you were saying.
Well, I was saying 100 years ago, you had a little more. The thinking that was going on was, I think, a little more communicable as both sides were thinking about this stuff. Now it seems like if you're a Democrat, which I think used to be it just used to be radical left, but it looks like it's just a huge amount of Democrats now who are.
That's a good point.
They're at a point.
They're not John Kennedy Democrats.
This isn't John. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they're at a point where they're like, okay, we're getting oppressed. We're getting killed in the streets by cops. We're not making enough money. Look at all these ethnicity groups. They're all in the gutter. It's all, it's time to rise up. We got to do something, but what they don't realize they're doing is that they're not thinking this through. So, we're in a revolution because that's how large of the scale it is now. It's not like this small pocket of people.
We're at the beginning of a revolution. The protests will turn into revolutions quickly.
Yeah. And it's affecting everybody. The Democratic mayors and the Democratic people in Congress aren't, saying, well, hold on, guys. Let me just walk you through this. Yeah, I also, too, believe socialism work. But this is why, it's like, no, just keep burning cities.
They have power.
It's fun to burn cities.
That's just it.
But now I have power. So before I was only making $7.50, and now whether I'm making $13.50 or not, because I'm quitting my job to burn this stuff.
Yeah.
Is I feel empowered.
Yeah.
Finally,
Right.
I feel empowered. And wait a second. This is the popular side. I'm in the cool kids club finally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And let's get more power. And screw the and
take that birth from high school.
And the emotion, and the emotion just carries and carries, and there's less and less thinking because the emotion carries it through. Yeah. And there are people that are now saying, get angrier.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get more enraged.
And who knows if they're actually trying to be like some medieval, or diabolical plan of we're going to rule America as Democrats, in the White House and stuff, or it's I can secure my spot as a politician for the next 10 years because all I have to do is push this fire, and I get to stay in Congress for the rest of my life, and I'm going to make six figures doing it.
Yeah.
So you've got the politicians that are like that, saying what put their finger out in the wind and say which way is it blowing.
Yeah.
I'll back them because that's going to make me get elected. That one, that
because it's
next
a career for that.
It's a career politician, and then but they're
not thinking about like what's best for the people.
But
or
the folks
country,
that are truly communists, okay, I
Yeah.
mean talking Marxist from Karl Marx, not even Russian communist, is, and I think we talked about this, Jack, maybe, is what is the point of the revolution? It does have a goal, and that goal is the revolution.
Yeah.
It's the Hegelian dialectic of holding two competing thoughts, two opposing thoughts in your mind at one time. In other words, the phone exists and the phone does not exist.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're both true. And only through that conflict, this is Hegel, can a new enlightenment emerge.
Yeah.
And so the social version of Hegel is Marxism, which is by keeping the haves and the have-nots in conflict. First I have to convince the have-nots that they're have-nots.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
The haves, screw them. We're just going to say that's them.
Right.
And this is us.
Right.
I don't have to actually convince these people of anything. I just have to kill them.
Right.
I can convince these people to kill them. And then from there, only from there, is there a possibility of there being a new man. The new human being that emerges. Evolved from this. And we see this absolutely nowhere in nature. This doesn't exist. This is completely made up, completely manufactured. But they say, the revolution. Oh, we haven't seen the man evolve yet because there needs to be more revolution.
Yeah.
We haven't held the two things in conflict. So the goal of the revolution is always the revolution.
Right.
It's never true power in the sense of political power.
Yeah.
But you have to convince these people that they will be empowered.
Right.
And you will be empowered one day too. But a true communist that's trying to move things will want the revolution to continue because of this weird, like, Scientology view of what's going to happen.
No, it's really true. Yeah.
It's crazy. But very few people know that.
Yeah.
Very few people know that.
Well, I also think a big part of why so many people are like, oh yeah, the world's the worst it's ever been, is because of the 24-hour news cycle, where they have to make money and they have to get as many viewers as possible, especially in a day and age where YouTube's dominating them, the internet's dominating them.
True.
So it's let's show the worst of the worst all the time, and I think that inadvertently, yeah, puts out this idea that everybody's oppressed, everybody's going through hell all the time, everything's so bad. There's so many school shootings. There are, but I think that the picture is painted way worse than it actually is. So that when people hear, guys, we're oppressed and people are racist, they really believe it, and they don't even think they need to check the facts. It's like, I seen it on CNN.
Right.
Yeah. This is the world I live in.
It's so bad. This is basically the middle of
That's
Iraq.
a great point. And then the echo chamber effect of the internet, unlike the other news on television, which is the more I search for things,
the more likes,
the more stuff's going to be fed into my Google results.
Look, it's just getting worse. It's just getting worse every day.
And it's just my same idea echoing back to myself.
Yeah.
And
If you actually look at the statistics, it's kind of the opposite in a lot of places.
Right.
We're down in murders, we're down in crime,
Yeah.
our economy's doing great.
Well, even the coronavirus, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a virus doesn't exist. I think it doesn't. But we've had a lot more cases, but we have like the record number of deaths where 5 weeks ago, I'm making this up, but it's something like this. There were 7,000 deaths. And like last week, it was 100 deaths.
Yeah.
You don't hear that part of the news. You only hear about the number of cases.
Yeah, the escalation.
And yet, I also hear stories from people that Aunt Julie's friend, she went to go get tested, and it was a 2-hour wait, so she signed in. And after 2 hours, she's like, I'm out. Then she gets a call the next day that she was positive.
Really?
But she was never tested. And then somebody that works at the VA hospital said, yeah,
Are they just counting people in line?
we actually get financial incentives for PPE the more positives we have. So here's again the corruption of the fallen human, the perfect system that falls because we're selfish and we want money for PPE. So they're actually going to cadavers and trying to get positive tests, or making them up saying, well, you signed up, you're positive. I mean, there's some places in Florida that have 100% positive test rate. That's impossible.
That's literally amazing.
It's literally impossible. And then the deaths are shrinking, but it's going up. Now, unfortunately, people get that news and go, see, plandemic, not pandemic. Right. This is not real. The virus is manufactured. Something. Well, I don't know. There's some people that are dying from it. So,
right.
You know. Yeah. And yet there is, whether it's a George Soros, Bill Gates conspiracy or not, there is a lie that seems to be happening.
Yeah.
Which, if you think there's a lie happening, you go, aha.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Shadow states controlling.
Right.
Yeah.
Which in this case, and this is my point, it might be. And the mere fact that no matter what happens, we all go, well, that might not be true. Or you know what? That crazy theory, that might be true, right? The mere fact that we are always questioning our reality is for we have no tether on what's reality either. It just shows that the chaos is increasing.
Yeah.
And so we're all in a position of going, I don't know what's true. So all I'm going to have to do is I know what I believe. And I think this is necessarily, it's not bad, but it's going to end badly. I know I have my family, and we're just going to hold on. And we're going to do our own thing, and we're going to try to struggle through. And I'm going to watch Fox News because, again, at least I know that they tell me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think we're at the point where it's like, before it was, they're just telling you what I don't hear. No, they're really fair and objective. Now we're just like, no, I like this show better.
Yeah.
I like this entertainment better than the other entertainment. And so then we echo chamber more Civil War.
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny that, because I think if you told anybody this a long time ago, or 20 years ago, it's a long time for me, but that
your whole life.
Exactly. The more connected that we become, the less grounded we become.
So
and I think it's so the opposite of what you thought would happen. I think this whole idea of globalism is proven to not work. Whereas if we all are in everybody's life, and we're all connected, and we all tapped into each other in the news cycle and everything, we're gonna finally be able to figure all this out and order it and structure it correctly, and we're gonna be in a utopia, or the most, the best place we've ever been. And all we're really finding is that it's absolute chaos. Nobody knows what's true or not. Everything's diluted. Everything seems like it's a conspiracy theory or a lie. And a lot of it seems like it's actually is a conspiracy. That's true. Like what you were saying, all the stuff when you were young, you thought would be that would never happen. And that's crazy. Wow, actually that's happening right now. Or it's, even the Epstein stuff, there's no way people are going to an island and performing satanic rituals with that. That's children, so fake. That no way, just a bunch of crazy dudes. Yeah, and then it's oh crap, that's been happening for a long time.
Yeah. You know what? I wonder. I've been thinking about this because the more we're connected, we're not truly connected.
No, we're not.
Going back to the Simon Sinek idea of the false dopamine, true dopamine. Yeah. We're not truly connected. So what are we doing? We're in front of our keyboard, we're in front of our monitors, and who is the only person that truly exists at that moment?
You.
Me.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm the only one. Everybody else is an anonymous they and really subhuman.
Yeah.
They're sub me.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that I feel is the only truth. It just compounds it. And not only that, but, and you know this better than I do, in your generation, you grow up with this idea of, I'm not even sure who I am because I have to present
this false identity.
An identity that I want people to see. And I have no way of making real human connection.
And
I have no way of making, and unless you grow up in a family that has, real human connection in it, you can very well have that as it's not a skill set. You do not have that skill.
I completely agree. I think what's also really interesting about that situation is that, all these influencers and stuff like that, and even just everybody that's on Instagram, I think at least most people that are super caught up in it, they post all this stuff and they paint this picture of their life, how it is. And I really do believe that for a lot of them, they actually convince themselves that this really is my life and I am really this happy. Right. But then when they do any self-reflection, they find I'm not actually happy and this isn't, well, they don't think the conclusion this isn't me. They go, I'm actually not happy, and they find this I don't know, not disparity, but the things don't line up, so they're confused.
I'm not as happy as I should be based on the thing I'm projecting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it gets in this weird loop of illusion and falsehood. This is me, but it's not me. And I don't think the human brain can really, at least for most people, cannot comprehend living two realities at once. Because I do. Yeah,
it's the Hegelian dialectic. Yeah, it's impossible.
I really
can't hold two opposing things.
Because I really do think that, especially for young children, the internet's really dangerous because you are living two different lives in a really real sense. You're in this different dimension at certain times, and then you come back to this other dimension where all the rules are different. I mean, really, the laws of physics are even different to an extent because you're in these video games and you're in these chat rooms and whatever. And Then you come back to this world, and it's like, okay, well, I have to interact with people differently. I have to like look at them. I have to like deal with anxieties. I have to deal with feelings. I have to have this some kind of etiquette. Where online, it's whatever goes. It's the Wild West, and then you're living this like dualist life of like, I'm at one time this like super famous, super beautiful, all these filters on. I'm super rich. I'm super happy. But then when I come into this world, I'm this scared, vulnerable, awkward, selfish, whatever,
insecure,
and they just don't know how to reconcile the two, so they end up choosing the one that feels better and that gives them more like dopamine, but it's an artificial. It's just it's I can't remember what the word is, but it's satisfying them in a very shallow sense, where they're like, well, look at me, I have 1 billion followers, which means or 1 million followers, which means I have 1 million friends in life. It's like, well, in real life, you actually have one, and they're not actually your good friend. Like for somebody that doesn't spend a lot of time on the internet or really spends time developing a relationship, and they turn their phones off and they just sit and talk about like what's going on in their lives and their aspirations and their dreams and stuff like that. When you're online, you're not doing that. It's just this whole like stunt culture show.
Yeah.
You don't have any actual friends, but your brain goes, well, I do have all these friends, and you go, look how all these friends, and I should be really happy. Yeah, there's a cognitive dissonance. It's kind of
cognitive dissonance. That's it.
I should be really happy, and I think I'm really happy. So you have this like false dopamine hit of success and status, where there's actually no real, deeper level to that. It's just super surface level.
I thought about that when we were thinking about podcasts, and you guys were telling me how popular it was, and I was saying, well, what do they talk about?
That's a really good point.
And they go, well, they're just talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And I go, oh my gosh, that's the only true, because the soul, the spirit of the human spirit longs for real human connection, longs for real human dialogue. Yeah. And so the best you can do, though, is be a voyeur. So it's a voyeurism where you're peeping in on somebody else's real dialogue. Right. But I love it. Why do you love it? Well, because there's a dearth of it in your real life. There's no real human connection to your point. And so is why reality TV, the true reality TV, if you will, I don't want to see anything staged. I live staged.
Yeah.
Right,
I live a show. I want to see reality.
And I think the weirdest...
It's flipped.
Yeah. One of the weirdest parts of that is this weird psychological phenomenon that happens. I don't know if there's a name for it yet, but I even notice it happening to myself sometimes, and then I go, okay, that's just weird. Where you listen to these podcasts, you watch these like YouTube start and stuff, and then you start to get this weird sense of like, I'm friends with them, but you're not. You don't know them. They don't know you exist, but you get this weird connection of like, I'm in an intimate relationship with them, but it tricks your brain. You get that dopamine hit of like what I was talking about earlier of like, I have all these friends.
Spending time with my friends.
Yes, but you're not, and there's no fruits of that friendship at all.
Absolutely right. That's a great point.
Yeah, so you end up with all these false friendships, and I mean, it's so the worst. I think it's bad in America or any of like the Western countries. It is so bad in Japan. Like it's. This is why I mean, so many people are in anime now. Like all my friends are in anime. I'm not at all. I find it ridiculous. But but they're like, oh my gosh, the one place I want to go most in the world is Tokyo, Japan. Like I want to go to Japan so bad. Their culture's awesome. Their people seem so cool and interesting. I'm like, you're crazy. Like you're crazy if you want to go to that dystopia. Because talk about like a real hell on earth dystopia. It's Japan right now. Right. Because I'm not kidding. This is not an exaggeration. It's so bad over there, and their relationship skills have gotten so bad that they have cuddle cafes where you go and pay somebody to cuddle you for an hour because you can't get a mate or a partner to cuddle you.
Thing.
Because the weird thing is, or I guess just the reality of it is, it's crazy. Their love industry, and not the weird part is it's not even sex. I think it's not even sex. Yeah. It's not that at all. They have this love industry that is just around like pillows that make you feel like you're getting hugged, or like these robots that make you feel like you're getting kissed, or like these I'm not kidding, this really happens more than you'd think. People marry their DSs. Their video games, their little Nintendo DS, like their video game console. Handheld.
They marry the console.
Not
a person.
Console. They marry the person in the console because they have these like dating sims where like
But it's not a real person.
No.
So it's not like I'm connecting to
it's
you.
It's an AI. It's not even like an adaptive AI. Some programmer wrote this.
So it's not even marrying your dog, which actually is a live creature.
It actually makes more sense in this situation. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the part that really like contributes to it is that men are so shamed in Japan because if they're not successful, if they're not doctors, if they're not mathematicians or whatever, they're not worthy and they should go kill themselves. And That's not even an exaggeration. And then 2, women are not interested in having relationships anymore because they're so career focused that they're like, why would I ever want to marry somebody? This is all about my career. And I can go to the club where there's all of these, in these private rooms, where there's all of these like insecure kids, I mean men, but they act like kids, that want so badly to even see a girl that they'll pay money to hang out with me in these private rooms, nothing sexual, just to share a glass of champagne with me and sit there awkwardly. They'll pay me tremendous amounts of money just to sit with me, and they get all of the attention they need to fulfill their ego, and the rest of it's, I just want to go work on my career, and why would I have kids? It weighed me down, and their whole birth culture is so messed up that they don't even think it's important to have kids, and they're like,
that's messed up.
Yeah, it's so messed up. It's so messed up.
But people want to go there because of the anime world. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, because it's so enticing to them because they're like, oh, they're so futuristic and they have all this technology and like anime is so cool, and it's like,
is that because they're seeing the cartoons and they think that's real?
Exactly.
So like Yu-Gi-Oh is real or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know if they think that, but they think that like, it's
well, that's what they think.
Something like that.
Japan's like that.
Yeah, Japan's a bunch of like really cool BA, like cool guys that can have like demon powers and all this weird stuff, and it's not at all. It's a bunch of really weird 40-year-olds that act like they're 12 that die in internet cafes. One of their biggest, crazy. So a lot of people, this happens a lot. I'm not understating this, so I don't think I am. That they will sell all of their worldly possessions, okay, and then go live in an internet cafe. It's like a Starbucks, but it's all computers. So you go and play video games there. Okay. And then not a lot of them, but a good amount
live there.
Yes, they live there, and like they sleep there because there's little private pods where you play video games. They'll sleep in there. They'll eat ramen noodles all day, and some of them will game for 40 hours straight and die. And it happens like more than you'd think, where they'll just like. They'll check in on somebody that hasn't paid their rent that day for playing their video games, and there'll be a dead body in there. It's been dead for like 3 days because they forgot to eat or go to the bathroom or whatever, and their bladder exploded, or they starved to death, or dehydrated.
Their bladder exploded.
It happens.
They
more
forgot to go to the bathroom,
or they just don't want to. They're I'm too invested in League of Legends, or too invested in talking to this fake Asian girl on Steam.
And so it's so the owners like open the pod. They're like, hey,
dead. Happened again.
Hajimoto, hold it out.
Exactly. It's crazy.
You in now?
Kind of.
Free.
Yeah. Kind of. It's crazy. Japan is. They're in such dystopia right now.
I'm gonna have to edit that out.
Yeah. You're gonna get killed. Yeah, you're gonna hit with a bike lock. Yeah, they're in such a dystopia right now. But it's weird because a lot of the American culture is praising Japan. Is like they're super far ahead. Their technology is so advanced. Their people are so interesting. They have such a cool culture. And I think it's just all this like false idea because of the anime and the internet. Where in actuality, they're in a terrible state, and their birth deficit is it's so bad that they're selling more adult diapers than baby diapers at this point, like by a good amount. Like it's crazy because no one's having kids, no one's getting married. They have a similar problem with China, where men are seen as better. They're socially more important. They can do better jobs. It's more prestigious But then a lot of them end up killing themselves.
But they have an aging population too.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. Yeah. And then what's also bad is that a lot of them end up killing themselves because their dad locks them in their room because they're not a doctor yet and they won't talk to them, and that seems like a Family Guy's like a fake situation that really happens. So then they go and kill themselves.
I can see that.
But then also their suicides are so underreported because it's
an honor death. It's not a true suicide.
But kind of. So one, it's honorable to kill yourself, but then it's also shameful to have your son kill himself.
Gotcha.
So they'll go, oh yeah, Timmy went and lived with Aunt Bertha, and we just don't talk to him anymore. But he went and killed himself.
Right. He's out in that forest out by Mount Fuji.
Exactly. And so Timmy's alive and doing well. We just don't see him anymore. Right. But in actuality, he killed himself 3 years ago, and they don't know how to deal with it, or they just don't want to deal with it.
That's messed up.
It's sad, man. Japan's insane. And I really, truthfully don't think I'm understanding this at all. Like, I'm overstating it, I mean. You can watch anything on their culture, any documentary, and I really think you'll see pretty quickly, or watch their news cycles, that, like, Japan is really messed up, and they're going through a lot of really weird situation. Like, their sociology is just so jacked up.
Yeah, and if you're born into that, that's your normal. You know, so
right,
like
exactly.
That's just life.
They don't have any role models either.
It's not even like this is I'm cheating a system or something. I don't have to work.
Well, and there's no escape from it because if my dad locks me in and I'm depressed, this is normal, and I did fail, so I should die.
Yeah.
So it's not even like I got to escape and live my own life.
Yeah,
this
they're totally convinced.
This is a real hell.
Yeah. They're totally convinced that I'm not worth being.
So that brings up a question in my mind. What so if Japan is messed up, so Japan is not going to be the answer to my question. Where would you want to live right now in the world that you think is a place that's worth living? It could be the United States. It could be the United States. I mean,
that's the sad part.
But where is the place that's better right now in your opinion?
At least in my understanding, I mean, there's a couple of them. I honestly think, other than like our socioeconomics right now and like our cancel culture, America's pretty good if you can get away from the coasts. Like if you can get away from the East and West Coast, from the Californias and the New Yorks and all that kind of stuff. If you can just go to Middle America, people there are pretty reasonable and they're pretty normal because they're not in these like weird San Francisco bubbles and they don't really go on Facebook that much and they're just like, I mean, I just live out here and work on my farm or work in my normal local town, and like they're all crazy out there.
Midwest, mountains.
Yeah, exactly. And then go ahead.
Well, I was just going to quickly say, I think this is a huge part of America that isn't being acknowledged. Kind of how you're saying, like there's all these people who are going crazy, and then there's a huge part of America is like, can we just go back to normal? We don't want to burn America.
Right.
And like they're probably, and at the same time they're like, well, here
I like this. This is my place. I want to live here. Right?
Yeah. A lot of the Midwest is kind of still in the 50s. Like there's a lot of smaller towns in like the Oklahomas and like the Colorados of America that are just like, no, I mean we're a nuclear family. We have a small community. We all go to church on Sunday, whatever that church may be, and I talk to Tim at the grocery store, and I see John. I'm getting my mail, and we have conversations over coffee, and like. They're not that disrupted by these more bigger city conglomerate areas. So I do think that the news paints this picture of like all America has just gone to hell. Yeah. When I really think it's only like 8 states where it's like the Floridas and the New Yorks and like the DCs and the Maines and California and Washington and Oregon, where those places have really gone bad. But I think a lot of America is still pretty solid. Kansas, I don't think they're even talking about this that much. Other than like, hey, did you see what's happening in California? That's crazy, man. Yeah. Let's go back to doing what we normally do. Let's go have our,
but it's not a
night at the bar or whatever. Because they're not seeing that. Yeah.
And to touch back on this real quick,
a place like Alaska, they don't care at all. They're not seeing any of this. No one's riding in Alaska. There's not enough people.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They're just trying to survive from the, like the bears that are trying to kill them every night, or the not having sun for 6 months.
Or having too much and they can't sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the scary part, is because when, for most of the time in America, it just wasn't that. What happened in politics and what happens, on this, left versus right, and all this stuff, for most of America, it doesn't impact them directly. But what I think is concerning, like as with what's going on now, is it's going to impact everybody because just again real quick,
how?
If the sheep come after the sheepdogs and just to finish the thought, it really has in my eyes come to a point where most of the public Democratic Party want to destroy the Republican Party. I mean, it's not even it's not this like. If we want you to understand and stuff, and we're going to debate this. And stuff.
We're not trying to convert you.
And we understand what you're saying, but here's our points and stuff. It's literally we want 100% Democratic Party. We don't want any Republican Party. And if you're on the Republican Party, you're the enemy.
Here's the news.
Exactly.
Russia and China are not the enemy as much as you
it's
are.
the Republican Party. And again, the concerning part is that it's so polarized now that the Democratic Party is just so focused on these movements and having pretty much a socialist society. When you eliminate, if you look at the people who are enlisting into the military, who are becoming police officers, first responders, anyone in this type of area, because the Democratic Party feels safe. Yeah, they feel safe because they are safe. The majority of them are safe, and I I looked up a statistic, and so guilty pleasure of mine recently has been going onto Democratic channels, especially ones that are like, the echo chamber and the ones that have debates with conservatives, but the channel's liberal. So everyone who, subscribes and follows that channel, in the comments, they're just all Democrats and liberals. Yeah. So what I do, and I do this not just because it's fun, but it's actually educating, because you can learn a lot if you're actually trying to argue people for your side. It's
so you're a troll.
Not a troll. No, because I thought about that. I'm not trolling. Okay. I'm not going over there and saying, Joe Biden's,
throwing a grenade in there.
Exactly, and walk away. No, I actually go in there, and the comments that I think the people who are actually trying to make points, I go in there and I just ask a question. I'm like, so what does this look like? And they start going, or like someone will talk about how capitalism. Literally, last night someone was like, corporatism is now in America, and it's all because of capitalism and free market. So this is the learning part for me when you engage in these type of things. So I'm like, okay, let's how does corporatism happen? What are the negatives to capitalism? What evolves after? So I do all this research, and what I find is that corporatism is related to socialism.
What is corporatism? Like monopolies of like Google and stuff like that, or like corporations run the world kind of thing?
Exactly. So
I see. So socialism is because there's a state-run.
Gotcha. We're like
grocery store.
The private industry runs everything like that. Yeah. Google and the Facebooks and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So exactly. It's Amazon, and it's
so it's monopolies or trusts.
Yeah, or duopolies kind of thing.
Duopoly.
Yeah. It's pretty much corporatism is running the country pretty much.
Kind of like hyper-consumerism in a sense. That, like, we're all slaves to the corporations, and like, I don't know. I see a lot of like video games and shows nowadays that are like very into this. Like, I don't know. There's one called Outer Worlds that I was playing recently, where like the corporations, like you're either on the side of Google or you're like this. This is not what they are, but like you're part of company A or part of company B. You're Pepsi or Coke, and then like under that corporation, like you're almost becoming like a slave to them, and like you're.
I don't think that's what corporatism is. It's more social.
It's more like it's more like Coke's. It's a lot like monopolization. It's Coke's the only soda company.
Gotcha.
So they get to dictate what the prices are. How much consumer.
Like, true monopoly kind of thing.
It's pretty much true. Mm-hmm. A society and economic system that is based off of singular monopoly.
But that comes out of socialism, or
it comes out of socialism. This is what I read: is that it's a socialist idea to have having corporations take care of different communities. It's up to the corporations to. Because they have all the money,
right,
and they have
like it's your duty to.
It's your duty to
redistribution of the wealth from the corporation
exactly.
to the political, socio-political.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So this is his argument. It's that look how bad capitalism and free markets are, because it's gone to a radical sense of we're in corporatism, because it's he used the word unfettered capitalism.
Right.
So I did my research and stuff. I'm like, okay, not only is capitalism not related to corporatism, it's the opposite of corporatism.
Right.
Because when you have corporatism, you have singular companies dictating the markets. So we're in a free market
competition.
It's all competition, and so the corporatism. And this is honestly, when I was writing this out, I was like, I think I see what's going on here, because this is what I said. I was like, I actually agree with what you're saying. It's just you're not using the terms correctly. I after doing my research and stuff and having my own thoughts, I was like, I think you're actually right. I think America is going towards a place of corporatism,
right?
Because if you look at Google, Amazon. You can't compete with these companies.
You literally cannot.
Twitter.
So they diagnosed the disease, but not the cause, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was blaming it on the Republican view because Republicans are for a free capitalist.
And they're blaming that on the capitalist system?
Exactly, but corporatism is actually a product of socialism, which the Democratic Party is advocating for. So
real quick, could it also be, though, that it is almost like the inevitable end result of capitalism, that like one company will get so strong that with like, especially with a free market, because in a true free market you don't have like the same kind of antitrust laws.
Teddy
monopoly
Roosevelt
laws.
thought so. That's why he was the trust buster.
Exactly.
And he had the antitrust laws.
That one company will eventually always become so powerful that you just can't compete can't compete with them. I mean, like, you could start a phone company right now with your own OS and stuff, but you couldn't compete against iOS and Android. I mean, it's just impossible. How are you going to get? You don't have the same money for marketing, and the same money for product development, for R&D or whatever. So I wonder if it's also just like the inevitable.
It gets to a point where you can't
capitalism.
compete, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like
they just got too big.
A singular NFL team, and everyone else is now
nobody can enter. The barrier to enter is impossible.
So high. Yeah,
because even if you have a really good idea, it's an original. They just swipe it, they'll steal it or buy you out, and they're still. So the innovation doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, well, that just happened with, I think it was with Google, that Google has been caught, and I think they're under like an antitrust investigation for right now for this, that they've been buying a bunch of like startup companies, or even like places like Fitbit and stuff like that, and that aren't as much of a startup, that are pretty established, and then they like buy their tech and then make their own copy company. And then put that one out of business, even though it's their own company. But they've also been doing that with not their own companies in the App Store. I was listening to this on a podcast today, where they'll find other apps that they have in their App Store that are third-party apps that they don't own at all, and then they'll see what they're doing and then release their own version of it and then just put them out of business. They've even been doing this in their software, where like for Android, there'll be a feature that a third-party app adds to Android. They're like, okay, now you can do this that you couldn't do on vanilla Android or stock Android, what they call it.
So the original, like I'm the original guy that starts up the company. Google buys me. They create the clone, but they bought me, so they own the IP.
Yeah.
Do I lose or do I win too?
Well, I think they lose because then they shut your company down. Because so I work for Fitbit or whatever, and then we may. This isn't actually happening with.
But
Fitbit.
as an employee, I might lose. But as an owner, I might.
Yeah,
win.
you might profit. But it's not the same with their app system, because what they're doing is not buying the apps. But since they already have access to all of the apps in their code because it's in their app store and they have to review them, they can go, okay, they did
Well, that's
this.
no different than China and TikTok.
No, it's not.
That's the exact same thing.
It's not.
I have access to the platform, so therefore I have access to the information.
Exactly. And then they'll just put everybody out of business because, you got a cool Note app. I like all your features in your Note app. I'm just going to implement to my Note app, and now there's no reason to use that because ours is more integrated and it's free.
Yeah.
And we're Google, so everybody's going to use our Google stuff.
So I don't.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go off.
No. Same topic. So is an unregulated capitalist society, can it lead to corporatism? Because that's what I initially thought. That's initially what I thought.
I don't know the answer to that question because here's why.
Okay.
Just like we said, communism, pure communism, has never
truly been done.
Been done, because it's always failed because selfishness has people want to control each other. There's power. True capitalism, pure capitalism has never succeeded because it has always been corrupted by human sin in the sense of our selfishness and our lust for power and things like that too. So both of these systems, which if you want to say they're on either side of the spectrum, their pure forms are both utopian forms. So you have the, I'm using labels here, but you have the pure libertarian free market, even intellectual, and then the pure communist intellectual, and they're talking about something that isn't real, nor has ever existed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's only a logic puzzle in the sense that, and this would happen, then this would happen, then this would happen, and this would happen. Well, only in the logic system would it happen.
And if you're dealing with robots.
If I created a system and I created a bunch of, what do you call those, machine automated things, where the little bits interact with each other on basic rules, and it's called agent-based modeling, where you create like a million different little like squares, and they have rules. Like if you're within 3 squares of this, you move left. If you're in 4, and then what happens? It's pretty interesting. You let these things go, and then patterns emerge. So it's pretty cool. Just in the abstract.
It's all chaos theory.
Yeah, and I did some of that with one of my papers. If you remember, I ran that thing about tax compliance. Yeah, so you do that, and you can create thought experiments as far as kind of an agent-based modeling, this would work because Jack would respond this way because he's a rational person, and a rational person would choose, to work less if you taxed him at 100% and stuff like that. And like, yeah, that makes sense. That's what a rational person.
But Jack might be a workaholic and just wants to work.
But we're not rational, or Jack's selfish, or has other incentives outside of the money for leisure trade-off,
or
right?
His wife's dying,
whatever it might be. And so they're pure thought experiments. Same with on the communism side, the pure communism. The communist man wakes up, he does some artwork, he does a little bit of labor, he joins in with the other folks, and no, that's all this,
right?
And then somebody else is figuring out how he can use this guy to run his farm so he can make more money. Or something.
Right.
Again, it's Animal Farm, but I think there is an unwritten Animal Farm about pure capitalism.
I think you're right.
And I think a lot of my friends, if they
I actually think that they're not maybe in book form, but a lot of video games nowadays have been going into this whole idea.
Thing. Yeah, so there is.
This is kind of what I was talking about. There's a lot of. Outer Worlds is one, Borderlands is very like this, where corporations basically run everything, and you're kind of just a slave to these like one or two corporations.
So that's the corporation, but the pure free market idea that in the thought experiment, the Animal Farm analogy would be, well, we set it up under this idea of pure free market, and then all of a sudden it goes out of hand because selfishness comes in and human sin, just like with Animal Farm, where the pigs end up becoming basically the farmers and the oppressors. So, I mean, that's my opinion. I'm on the free market side more than I'm on the communism side, and most of my friends on the free market side, if they heard me say this, would go, But I do think the pure forms I'll say this: the pure forms haven't existed, so there's no data.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
there's no data.
I think just inherently, I think you can do this with logic. They just can't. It's impossible that the platonic form, if you will, of these things cannot exist because we're not platonic beings. I mean, we're completely flawed.
Yes.
So anything we create, anything we engage ourselves in, anything we touch is going to be inherently flawed since we're inherently flawed.
And I think that's the Christian outlook, is that if there's going to be a Christian outlook on the socio-political system, it's always going to be something that's going to have crime, evil things, because people are just like that, and you're going to have mechanisms of trying to stop them from doing that, or giving them incentives. It could be free market structures and says, let's give them incentives not to rob each other, right? Yeah. Whatever it might be. But in the end, it's still going to be having to deal with human sin, where communism and capitalism in their pure free market they're not built around the idea of addressing original sin, human sin.
Right. Yeah.
Human sin is oh crap, we have that sin thing again. Right? You can't deal. So I don't know. So to answer your question, I don't know that anything actually is proven to lead to anything.
I don't think so either.
And I think just like communism, where it actually does work, if you have under 150 people, I'm sure on the free market side too, given 100% to a free market, it might work at some degree, if the population is so low. But when there's 320,
we're trading corn for cattle.
If we all just live,
I mean, it used to work like that. Until we
smaller communities,
globalizing ourselves.
In fact, a true commune might actually have a free market built into it.
So I think on both sides, it's not going to work. But it's kind of that answer of, well, there is no simplistic answer to just. There is not just one answer to solve all this.
Nobody's found it yet.
Yeah,
and we all need to become tribes again. No more than 150 people per tribe, and we're good.
Yeah. So, I think the extremes on both
until they become more than 150 and they come and kill us.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that was tried in North America, and then like some ships from Spain came over.
Yeah. They had free borders, by the way. No one's acknowledging that, by the way.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, come on in.
Oh, all right.
Or our land sucks.
I'm getting tired. You want to end it?